Does gender hold a significant role within music? Short answer, yes. Since the beginning of time, the creation of music and ability to play and perform has been a part of life and for many cultures and individuals. However, because of the harsh patriarchal values set within society, women were, and still currently are, treated as less than men. This has been a prevalent occurrence for an uncountable amount of people throughout history. Focusing solely on the discrimination of women within the music industry, it becomes very blatant that men fear and hate them, while simultaneously lacking reason for doing so. So why is it that women have had to endure these inequalities while solely trying to enjoy music? Often, women aren't recognized for their musical works, which are often stolen or covered up by men, or completely forgotten to history as a whole. Women in the classical era were not often allowed to pursue a professional job in the music industry. It was the norm for women and girls to be taught piano or occasionally other instruments until they reached the age of maturity. This was mostly only because having a creative skill like playing the piano, for example, was seen as a good quality while looking for a marriageable partner. Just another unfortunate example of how women are only seen as useful when they're available for a man. Men were able to learn and pursue future careers in music with no social or professional repercussions, where women had to fight just to be able to play music past its usefulness in the eyes of a man. For our first example, I'm going to talk about Maria Ann Mozart, otherwise known by her nickname, Nannerl. Not sure if I pronounced that right. Why is it that the sister of one of the world's best-known composers and musicians is almost completely unknown? As children, only born a few years apart, Wolfgang and Maria were both musical prodigies who both played the piano incredibly well. Their father would take them on tour as children under the stage name Wunderkinder. Again, don't know if I pronounced that right. However, as soon as Maria turned 18, she was no longer allowed to partake in music, and from that day forward, she was never able to tour with her music ever again. Fortunately, Maria still focused on music and was able to become a music teacher later in life. She continued to compose some of her own musical pieces, but unfortunately, they were all lost to history. It's unknown why and how her music was lost. Some speculate by her own hand so she didn't have to face the repercussions of her reputation, because women were not commonly allowed to use their free time to compose. Some people also think some of Wolfgang Mozart's pieces may have been Maria's, but nothing of the sort has ever been proven. Mozart himself said about his sister's musical ability, and I quote, "perfect insight into harmony and modulations, and that she improvises so successfully that you would be astounded." This showed that she had what it took to become just as famous and successful as her brother, but because of the sole fact that she was a woman, she did not have the opportunity to thrive and grow as a musician. Another example of a female musician who has dealt with inequality around this time was Ethel Smyth. Her story, however, offers some hope to the women in the music community as she was able to compose and conduct her own music, as well as write her own books. Between 1880 and 1930, she published 2 sets of lieder, multiple chamber pieces, 2 symphonies, 6 operas, and various songs made for voice and piano specifically. On top of that, she also had many unpublished works that are still preserved to this day. Throughout her later life, she began to write a plethora of letters, which she then turned into her memoirs and other written works. Smyth made herself known to multiple famous composers of the time as well, which aided her in her musical journeys. As a published composer and writer, she chose an independent career and focused life for herself, which at the time was a huge taboo. It was widely accepted that women should not have the same careers as men and should stay home caring for the family, subject only to feminine duties. Ethel Smyth created her own path of life and decided that getting married and having a family would interfere with what she wanted for herself, that being her career in music. This, of course, came with lots of backlash from the men and other professionals within the music industry of that time, although she never let these criticisms get in her way. Continuously fighting for her rights as a woman, Smyth would often lead and join suffragette protests, leading choruses of women chanting her song, The March of Women, down the streets. All of the women in our past fought to make the future a better place over the course of hundreds of years. But are we still oppressed? Unfortunately, sexism is still running rampant within the music industry in modern day. We are constantly seeing women unable to create music and have complete creative freedom. They are horrendously sexualized within the industry and within music itself, and are often not given the opportunities that men are. Although blatant sexism has lessened throughout the last couple of decades, it's still running rampant right under our noses. There seems to be a divide between genres and female performers specifically. Women are mostly seen as pop stars, and it's not often that a woman will become well known in the rock, country, or rap genres. Similarly to how women were not allowed to participate fully in classical music of the Victorian era. Granted, there are a few well-known female stars from within these genres, however, when compared to their male counterparts, are highly lacking in representation. Typically, when these women have the chance to get themselves to the top, they're marginalized, criticized, and sexualized. Statistics from the research study titled Inclusion in the Recording Studio by Professor Stacy L. Smyth and the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative state that the study examines gender and race ethnicity of artists and content creators across 700 popular songs on the Billboard Hot 100 year-end charts from 2012 to 2018. This report also evaluates gender for 7 years of Grammy nominations for Record of the Year, Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Producer of the Year, and Best New Artist. Finally, the investigation examines the barriers facing female songwriters and producers through a set of qualitative interviews. Across all 7 years examined, 21.7% of artists were female. After hitting a 6-year low in 2017, little change was observed in the percentage of women working as artists in 2018. 17% of artists in 2018 were women. Turning to producers, the percentage of women working in this role remained stagnant in 2018, and only 2% of producers across 400 songs were female. For producers, this translates into a gender ratio of 47 males to every 1 female. Only 4 women of color have worked as a producer on the 400 songs analyzed as well. I can't believe that only 21.7% of women were only able to make it to the top charts, and only 2% were able to be producers. What does this say about the world that we're living in? As unfortunate as this information is, there is also a positive. There have been a multitude of female artists, feminists, and influential entertainers who use their platforms to fight for the rights of women within the music industry and the world as a whole. Women who have seen firsthand what it can be like for other women in the industry, women who have had to endure the same things and have finally had enough, and attempts to shed light on the topic of gender equality and to enact righteous punishment of those who have wronged them in this way. These women are sharing their stories and promoting equality within their music. By doing so, people are starting to notice this oppressive treatment of women and other minority genders. What was once pushed under the rug by men perpetrating these ideals is coming to light for everyone to see.